Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Josh, and I help run Asana's community program and create events like these for folks like you. I and the rest of the team are super happy to see you here. We'll be getting started in a few minutes. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and you'll be sent the recording in a follow-up email. Let us know who you are. Share your name on Zoom. Just put your first name and last name and maybe where you work. That'll let us know who's here with us today. We've muted everyone, but feel free to let us know where you're joining us from in the chat box. While you're waiting, also check out the Asana Community program and the conversations happening in the community forum. Both of those URLs are up on your screen. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes. Hello, Kat from San Francisco. Welcome. Welcome, Janice. Hi, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes. If you're just joining us, I'm Josh. I help run Asana's community program. We're all really excited to see you here. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. You'll receive the recording after the event. As you're logging in, feel free to edit your name in Zoom. Let us know who you are, where you work, and in the chat box, let us know where you're joining us from. We want to know who's here and where you're coming from. Everyone is muted. There'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions later. So if you have any questions, you'll be able to do that. While you're waiting, check out the Asana Community program and the conversations happening in the Asana Community forum. Both of those URLs are up on your screen. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes. Thanks. Diego, welcome from Italy, coming from far afield. We really appreciate that. Welcome to the webinar. KB, all the way from Oakland, welcome. Everyone just joining us, welcome. I'm Josh and I help run Asana's community programs and create events like these for folks just like you. I'm really happy to see you here. Welcome today. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. You'll receive the recording after the webinar concludes. Let us know who you are. Edit your name in Zoom, put your first name, last name, and where you work. And in the chat box, let us know where you're joining us from. We want to know who's here and where you're joining us from. Let us know that by going into the chat box. You're muted right now, but there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions later via the Q&A box. While you're waiting, check out the Asana Community program and the conversations in the Asana Community forum. Both URLs are up on the screen. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes. Thanks. All right, everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Less Busy Work, More Teamwork, Maximizing Team Productivity, presented by Asana. Whether you are joining us on Zoom or Facebook Live, we are really happy to have you here with us. My name is Josh. I help run Asana's community program and create programs like these for folks like you. Thank you so much for being here and for being part of Asana's community. We really appreciate it. Speaking of community and the broader world around us, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge what's going on in our global community. From the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic to protests all around the world against racial injustice, there is no denying that it's a challenging time for many of us. We all have a lot on our minds and a lot that we're working through, each in our own ways. I personally and we at Asana don't have all the answers, but as a member of our community team, I can say how important it is to have the space and the opportunity to come together, and how glad I am to see all of you here. We have an awesome agenda for you today. We will hear from a variety of local Toronto business leaders across a number of different sizes and types of businesses and industries. I think you'll really enjoy hearing from them. They'll be chatting about how they're keeping their teams working together and moving forward in the midst of all of our world craziness, and we'll learn their best practices for working together. You're going to leave with actionable ideas that you can bring back to work with you right away. This event is part of our 2020 World Tour, where we're going all around the world, virtually, of course, meeting people like you. It's super exciting to connect with customers like you, share ideas around teamwork and productivity and work management, and of course, to share some Asana tips, which you'll be hearing later from our speakers. Thanks for being here today, and thanks for being part of Asana's growing productivity movement. It is a community, and we're all really excited that you're part of it. So today, I'll be sharing a few words about Asana. We'll be getting to know who's here on the webinar with us, and then we'll bring up our panel of experts. We will leave time at the end for your questions. Whether you're joining us from Facebook Live or from Zoom, there will be a way for you to ask your questions and have our panelists answer them. Before we begin, I just want to share a few words about Asana for those of you who may be unfamiliar with it. Now, each of us has to get our work done. That's why we're at work. But for many of us, the bulk of our time is spent on just about everything other than our core work. That could be processing emails, spending time in meetings, looking for information that we just can't find. At Asana, we call this work about work. We all know that this is a problem, but it's unlikely that you measured it. Luckily for us, McKinsey did. And what was interesting is they found that almost 60% of the average knowledge worker's time is spent doing this work about work. It's not fun, and it wastes a lot of our time. When we talk about achieving our best work and avoiding work about work, it's really clear that the best performing teams have a clear mission or purpose that they're trying to achieve. From there, they build clear objectives on what they're going to be doing. Their objectives are specific and they're measurable, and they show clear forward progress towards completing the steps that it takes to get to reach their mission. Those objectives then get broken down into projects. Projects are the bodies of work that teams come together to work on. Each project then contains tasks. These are the individual units of work that each team member performs. Typically, there's a lot of tasks, that's natural. But much of that work about work is usually driven by lack of clarity, and that clarity can be who's doing the tasks by when, how those tasks ladder up to mission objectives or goals, and how each individual's work ladders up to achieve those different things. When all this comes together, at Asana, we call this the pyramid of clarity. When you have clarity of plan, purpose, and responsibility. And when your team has it, that's when the magic happens and work starts to feel effortless. Asana is designed to help you and your team plan and manage your work, everything from the biggest goals in your mission down to who's responsible for doing what tasks and by when. That way you and your team are always in the know. So whether you're planning complicated projects or just working on single individual tasks, Asana makes it really easy to keep track of who's doing what by when. Asana also helps you monitor all of your organization's plans, initiatives, and objectives in one central spot through portfolios, like what we're seeing here on the screen. This one is key to me as a manager. You can also look at your most important asset, your team, team members, and their workload. This helps you promote balance and avoid burnout by being proactive in planning capacity and rebalancing work amongst your team so that no one's getting overloaded. We found in our studies that 82% of workers feel overworked, and balance is one of the key areas that teams can look at in order to reduce work about work and reduce burnout, and finally, to make sure that tasks aren't falling through the cracks. Asana is currently helping millions of teams in more than 195 countries all around the world achieve their best work. This includes some companies you may recognize, some global brands, as well as a number of companies closer to home here in Toronto. I'd like to highlight just a couple of our local customers and talk about how Asana is helping them on their teams. First up is Islamic Relief Canada. This organization provides aids to people affected by earthquakes, ethnic cleansing, civil conflict, and more. And they engage Canadians to help make donations to help the people who are affected by these traumatic events. Now, at any time, they have over 200 projects in flight and 3 million beneficiaries that they're managing. Suffice it to say, they have a lot to juggle and a lot of people to help. With Asana in place, they've been able to increase volunteer engagement, which is amazing, and reduce the number of meetings. And they also have their entire team aligned on the goals of their work. They've also been able to give their team much better visibility across their organization by sharing a single project where everyone can post and review team updates. Now, the marketing team at the Telfer School of Management at University of Ottawa promotes the great work that the school is doing. This is a team of trailblazers. They're really creating a playbook for digital transformation that other departments and schools can follow. They're currently serving 4,500 students, 200 faculty, and over 25,000 alumni. Their small, newly formed team decided to spin up new processes to better support their ever-growing workflow, and they adopted Asana to help them. They created an automatic project intake request form that saves them lots of time and has significantly increased efficiency since all the information they need is collected up front and then things are routed to the right person automatically for completion. Work no longer falls through the cracks, and it's all centralized in Asana, which makes it a lot easier to finish their projects quickly and easily. Now, we've heard about some of our customers, and we'll be hearing from a few more in just a little bit, but I'm a firm believer that experts are all around us, and everyone on this webinar is an expert on how you do your own work. So here comes the interactive portion of today. We want to hear from you. So in the chat box, let us know where you're joining us from. Although this webinar is centered around Toronto and Toronto-based industries, we know there's people joining us from all over the world. So let us know where you're joining us from. Also, your top strategy for staying productive on your team. Maybe it's holding fewer meetings, having meeting agendas, putting tasks into Asana. What are you doing to stay productive on your team? And for those of you joining us from Toronto, I personally want to hear what the best restaurant is in Toronto. Usually we do these events in person, and on the Asana team, we really, really love food. And so we're always collecting the best restaurant ideas from locals. So let us know where we should be going the next time we're here in Toronto. So let's hear it. Just go into the chat box and let us know where you're from, your top strategy for staying productive, and the best restaurant in Toronto. Let's see what people are saying. Well, I can say my favorite restaurant in Toronto is Alouette, which is on Spadina Street. I really love burgers. I'm a burger person, and there's actually one of the best burgers, I think, in the world at Alouette on Spadina. So I highly recommend that. Brian is joining us from Newman, Georgia. Stephanie from Toronto. She says, always have an agenda for your meetings. Definitely a great tip. Best restaurant, Alo, the restaurant just above Alouette. Thank you, Stephanie. Great. Jamie from Toronto. Bark smoked ribs and chicken. Great. Harshi is from Mississauga. Great, welcome. Ashley from London, Ontario. Top strategy, having a plan for the day. Great. Eric from Toronto has a daily Microsoft Teams video with his team. Fantastic. Jeff from PartnerStack. Hi, Jeff. We know Jeff well. Welcome. Recommends Wurst for sausages. Amazing. Thank you so much. Great. Kim Oser, a friend of mine I know personally. Welcome from Washington, D.C. She's also using Asana. Great. And she's asking, can I send the list of restaurant recommendations? Fantastic. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Feel free to keep chiming in on the chat with your recommendations, both for your productivity tip and for the best restaurant in Toronto. With that, I'm going to start our panel. Panelists, please join us. And just a note, we are going to leave a few minutes at the end for your questions. If you're joining us via Zoom, you can add them directly to the Q&A box, not the chat box. If you are joining via Facebook Live, just add a comment with your question, and our team will put them into the question and answer box for us over here in Zoom. So wherever you are, feel free to join us and ask your questions. Now I'd like to welcome up our panel. Hello, Devin, Sheryl, and Leah. Welcome.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. So maybe we can start by just having a quick introduction. Maybe each of you can introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do, and whether you're an individual contributor or a manager. Devin, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So I am a delivery manager at a company called RewardOps, and we work in the loyalty industry, so with a lot of popular loyalty programs. And I am responsible, I'm an individual contributor, and I'm responsible for working with all of our teams to optimize our processes, improve the way we work as a team, and make sure we're working effectively.
Awesome. Welcome, Devin. Sheryl, how about you?
Hi everyone. So I'm working with IPG Mediabrands in Toronto as a project manager. I work with the business intelligence team, and we undertake a lot of reporting automation projects. So we are the team who would turn all your boring Excels into swanky dashboards and make it more interesting for you guys. Apart from reporting automation, we also help in rolling out major softwares across the company. Right now, we are working on rolling out Asana across IPG. And then I do want to mention that my favorite restaurant in Toronto is Pai, and it's amazing for Thai.
Thank you, Sheryl. Welcome. Leah, last but not least.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Heidenheim. I am the Senior Manager of Operations in the Development Department at the National Ballet of Canada. I just want to point out that in the not-for-profit sector, development is the process of creating and enhancing relationships with donors and potential donors to ensure the current and future fundraising. But it's more than fundraising, it's all about making connections and engaging with people. And my role in that department is to develop policies. I facilitate planning and oversee operations to ensure efficiencies on the team. This involves creating data management systems, developing technological solutions for the day-to-day operations, and of course, the accurate and timely financial reporting. I have 3 direct reports, and I oversee the operational oversight on a team of about 20.
Great. Welcome to our panelists. So before we jump into the panel discussion, let's just set the stage for where we're at in the world. Remote work has become the new normal for most of us in the past few months. Whether we wanted to or not, it is here and it is with us. And according to Asana's Anatomy of Work Remote Teams survey, this new normal is not at all the same as the old normal for how we used to work. For instance, nearly 60% of the global knowledge workers that we surveyed said they're working different hours since shifting to remote work. This change, amongst a whole host of others, has led to major differences in how we work with our teams and how we get done. For instance, almost 2/3 of knowledge workers pre-COVID have increased their collaboration tools after COVID. So we've seen a lot of these changes in tools, teams, strategies, time that we work in, everything. So let's start with our conversation around working remotely. So maybe Leah, you can kick us off. Does your team work remotely now? And in response to COVID-19, like, what has that experience been for you and for your team? What's it been like?
Well, we started physical distancing measures in the office around mid-March, closing the office building completely to staff on March 25th, sorry. So what happened for us was on Friday, March 13th, we canceled the remainder of our March season of Romeo and Juliet. A shocking move for us. The following Monday on March 16th, any staff who could were encouraged to work from home. And then by the following Wednesday, the office was closed. All the admin staff were set up to work remotely. That includes the box office department, which was no small feat at all. It was an absolute whirlwind of preparation assessment. We had to review everyone's technical requirements, who needed laptop, provide software training, VPN access, and of course, a complete overview of all of our processes to make sure that we could still do what we needed to do. And it all just happened in a complete blink of an eye, it seemed.
Yeah, it was a major change, I think, very rapidly for most of us. Sheryl, for you, what is the biggest challenge you and your team has faced while working remotely, and what have you done to mitigate or address it?
So we have been working from home for 4 months now, and I would say it has definitely gotten easier with time. Initial few days were a bit challenging. IPG already had all the resources and infrastructure in place to, move to working from home conditions. It wasn't very challenging like that, but it definitely needs a change in mindset. And when we started working from home, we didn't know that it's going to be for so long. The biggest challenge I would say was communication. Earlier, you could just pull up the chair and, hey, do you have 2 minutes? Can we do this together? Or can you show me your screen? And now everything was meeting. So initially we were just sitting in meetings and, trying to make sense of what's going on. But over time, I think we found a groove, and now we are in a better situation. And I know things are more streamlined, I would say, right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think for us on my team and Asana as a whole, like, it felt pretty bumpy at first. I think there was also just a lot of pervasive stress around what is happening, and you can't ignore that that affects how you work. But I would agree, over the past few months, we've definitely found our groove and figured out what works and what doesn't in this new format. And I think it'll be a constant evolution. The biggest challenge now, I think, is that we don't know when this will end exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, oh, things are getting better. No, they're not. We're sure when we're going back. No, we're not. And so I think that'll be part of it for us. Devin, for you, how is your team staying organized and making sure you're still staying productive while working from home?
So our team has actually adapted really well to this. We had a 1 day a week work from home policy before, so we were a little bit used to it. But the team has really stayed in touch over Slack. Lots of the individual teams are having daily stand-ups, whereas before it was mainly our development teams that were doing that. So just checking in with each other, making sure that that everything's on track, and highlighting any deliverables. We've also, I've seen an uptick in the use of our tools, which is great. And we've created sort of a master report for the whole company of all of our major deliverables and deadlines, so that at any time, if you're unclear on what should be worked on, you can just navigate to that report and see everything.
That must be really helpful for everyone, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was basically built out of necessity. People were saying that they were confused, and people were unsure. So
important. Yeah, one of the things that we found in our anatomy of work study is that when people are clear on what's happening and they feel connected to their work, they're much more motivated and engaged, which I think is extra important in the world of being disconnected physically from each other. Leah, related to that, I'm wondering for you, and I'm guessing this probably had a major effect on your team, when you had to shift everything to remote work, like, you basically had to close down like your shows, which I'm guessing is a major motivator of your teams there, is presenting the great work that you do to the world. How do you keep your team motivated and manage anxiety and even depression, which we know can be really a big challenge for a lot of teams in the midst of all this? What are you doing to manage that overwhelming feeling sometimes?
Yeah, that's a big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So at the National Ballet of Canada, pretty much right away, we started with holding these regular company-wide town halls online. These were on Zoom. What I find fascinating about this actually is the first time that we had all of the admin staff, all of the dancers, the orchestra, the wardrobe department, our production department, everybody that filters in was all on one call together. And I think that might be an actual first for the company. So that actually was really great. In those meetings, our executive director told us what was happening. He set the values that we would use as our guidelines. He answered the questions that we had. It was very open and honest. What I liked about it and what seemed to work is that it created a sense of that we're all in this together, even when we don't know what this is. But like, here's the next 2 months, what's after that, we don't know, but it was a nice open environment for that. Our HR department put up a section on our SharePoint site. On their pages, there's a whole section devoted for COVID resources. It includes public health links and resources, wellness resources, and also government and employment information. So if anyone had any questions about what is happening, you could go to one place and it was, trusted, vetted, you knew what you were looking at. We also initiated something called Company Connect. So these are a series of online meetings with the purpose of engaging with the fellow staff members and dancers. It was very informal. We had 3 new hires actually start the beginning of the lockdown. So they didn't even get to see any of their colleagues. They're like, hi, welcome to the company, sign some paperwork and go back home. You don't actually get to meet anybody. So for a few of these Company Connect, we got to meet them. They got to engage with people outside of their department. There was a cooking class that was hosted by a member of our orchestra, categories games, a Pilates class. So they're trying to hold these every week or so, and that, creates a sense of togetherness. And then within our development department itself, we are holding every week or every 2 weeks a social or happy hour where we could just blow off some steam and hang out together.
That's great. So much of that is about connection and communication, which is a very nice segue into our next topic. Thank you, Leah. So we've talked a lot about how important it is to stay connected to one another and how important it is to have those open lines of communication. Each of you have touched on that a little bit. One of the challenges is that this could sometimes, when there's the wrong communication or over communication, it can actually lead to people working late or burnout. We've actually seen in our studies that 41% of people that we polled say that they work late to address the constant stream of messaging and emails, and another set of their time is spent on chasing approvals. All of this can be managed. So I'd like to hear from each of you, what are the communication tools that you are using within your work today? And what guidelines, if any, have you set for how your team uses the different communication tools? Maybe, Sheryl, we can start with you.
So our organization relies heavily on Office 365, and we use Outlook for emails, and then Teams for meetings and chats, and then obviously Asana for project management. So I would say we already had all these tools, but then we are realizing their true potential only right now because we are on them all the time. Um, uh, so basically Teams is, all our meetings are on Teams, and all the chats are also moved there. We are in fact celebrating virtual birthdays and having coffee chats, and everything is on Teams now. And then Asana has helped us a lot as well to keep us streamlined and focused on what we need to do. And then Outlook always has its own place, but these are the three massive ones that we are using on day-to-day basis.
Great. And Leah, how about for you? What's in your communications tech stack, and what guidelines do you have around using these different tools?
I think our tech stack is exactly the same as Cheryl's. We have email and Teams for communication and chat. We use Zoom and Teams for our meetings, SharePoint, OneDrive for all of our documents, Asana for task management, cross-departmental policies. Some departments are using Slack, but not all of them. For guidelines, I think one of the new processes that we put in place to help filter through all of the noise that comes through our inboxes is making better use of our subject lines. So in our emails now, you would use the subject line to indicate whether a response or approval is required. And if you have a deadline, put it in there. So for example, a subject line would be approval required, EOD for end of day, and then a colon, updated copy for newsletter. So that if I actually have to read that or someone needs something from me, I can see it right there in the subject line. I like to think it helps, but
And have you found that helps with like expectations around responsiveness on your team?
I would say that it has helped, but it hasn't solved.
It's an ever elusive solution, that particular one.
Yes.
Great. And Devin, how about for you? What's in your communications tech stack, and do you have any guidelines around how the different tools are used?
Yeah, so we actually, we don't focus on email very much internally. So because I mainly work internally, I don't have a ton of email, which is really nice. We use Slack for sort of all of our internal communications. We have a wiki that we built in Confluence for all of our documentation and everything like that. Our development team uses Jira, and our business and customer facing team uses Asana. We also have a product road mapping tool that integrates with all of this as well. So we have quite a few different tools, but they each serve their individual purpose. And I've worked to integrate all of them, so there's never a disconnect with the information. So that's sort of our main stack. As far as rules go, we recently just came up with some guidelines for Slack just because we found there was a lot of channels and people weren't really sure which channel to communicate which things in. So we're still rolling those out, but those have been helpful already.
Yeah, I can thank you for that. I can say for us at Asana, we've over the years continued to gain more clarity on what each tool is for. So for instance, we typically, unless you're working with an external customer or partner, we don't use email at all internally. There are no emails sent between Asana team members. All communications happen either in Slack, if it's like, hey, I have a quick question or want to grab a virtual lunch, or it's happening in Asana if it's related to a task or a project. So if there's something that we're working on together, if I'm going to message you about it, it's going to be in a comment in a project. So at least the context is all together. For video calls, we usually use Zoom. And if there's something in Slack that we need to follow up on, we just turn it into a task in Asana. So we're trying to keep all the comms channels pretty clear and straight so that at least we can reduce some of that overwhelm. Now, Leah, I'm curious from you, you'd mentioned that you have some guidelines that you use to use the subject lines more effectively, and we talked about expected responsiveness. Now, sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't. I'm curious what your team's stance is on availability. One of the things that we've seen during all of us working from home is that people are having sometimes a challenging time balancing when they should be working and when they should be focusing on home life, because when work and home are in one spot, a lot of those boundaries get blurred. And so what's your team's stance on availability of people?
Well, there has to be a high level of flexibility. I don't think it's possible to hold people to the 9 to 5 standard. There are so many unique situations that you have to be flexible with the expectations. We have staff on our team who are managing with kids. As you know, it's pulling in all directions. When you're not working in between meetings, you're making lunches, you're playing referees, you're helping with homework, you're a teacher. We have staff who are sharing their apartments with 4 other people. They're all balancing their internet usage, trying to have meetings at the same time in one common room. We have one staff whose spouse is an author, and they're sharing one office, trying to get everything done throughout the day. We have staff who are taking meetings in their bedrooms, in their closets, even in their bathrooms. So when it comes to making that work, the team, the department has a set meeting schedule, so staff can plan their time around that. Other than that, though, each individual team, each individual working group schedule is between the employee and their direct manager. If a deadline for a task is on Tuesday morning, if it gets done at 5 p.m. on Monday or midnight, it doesn't matter, as long as it's done before someone else needs it, right? The trick, of course, is to make sure people are unplugging. No one can be expected to be fully accessible all the time. And how do you follow up on that? That's the challenge, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think there's any one right way to do this, but I think a lot of it goes down to how you communicate with your team, which it sounds like you've done an amazing job with. Sheryl and Devin, I'm curious, as a result of us working from home, there's a lot more communication that tends to happen because you can't just swivel your chair around and ask someone a question. How are each of you balancing the need for communication against reducing communication overwhelm on your teams? Maybe Devin, we can start with you.
Honestly, I don't know that I'm playing the biggest part in that. I know that our team has always communicated fairly effectively over Slack. We do have a weekly Q&A where people can just sort of ask our leadership team anything that's been on their mind. They can submit it in advance. So that has been a new communication method and new tool where people have been asking different kinds of questions that maybe at the office you wouldn't normally even hear come out. So that's been handy. But as far as communication overwhelm, I don't know that I would be the biggest contributor to that. I'm probably the one poking people and bugging them the most.
Fair enough. Sheryl, how about for you?
So I think for us, we have very well-defined meetings or touch points. So, if there is a team meeting that happens every week, we are very clear with what we want to achieve with it, instead of just, if it's a casual meeting, then it's totally casual, no work talk. But if it's like a work meeting, then we have a set agenda. And that kind of helps with communication overwhelming because you are sticking to the point and you're getting stuff done. The communication portion did increase a bit because, as you mentioned, you can't just go to someone's seat. But I guess after the initial hiccups and initial settlement, now we are at a stage where everybody is comfortable with what's going on and we have a fixed pattern. Okay, Monday morning, this meeting, Tuesday, we have to talk about this and so on and so forth. So it's much better right now.
Thank you. Yeah, meetings have obviously become in many cases, a bigger part of our lives than in the past. One of the things that we found when we surveyed people was they said 2/3 of the meetings they participated in are deemed unnecessary, which doesn't entirely surprise me, but is also infinitely painful to see and look at because I think about how we spend our times. Connection is definitely important, and Sheryl, you gave some really good indicators of like when a meeting works and when it doesn't. Let's talk a little bit more about meetings because it is so integral to how all of us are working now. So Sheryl, maybe we can start with you, but I'd like actually each of you to answer this question. What are some of your regular meetings and what are they for? Sheryl?
Yeah, so we have a lot of meetings and I'm the one setting them up because I'm the project manager of the team. So I'm the bad guy here. But so we have weekly team meetings. We do them twice a week where it's more like a scrum meeting where we just touch base with what's going on with the team and if there are any roadblocks. Then we have meetings on department level. That's called town hall and everybody in the department would join. And then we have quarterly briefs that's on the organization level and everybody on the organization would come in for those. So those are different levels of meeting, and this is in addition to your regular project meetings, question and answers that you might have, and then one-on-one with your manager. So these are some of the ones, but they're not really new. We were already doing them when we were in office. They've just moved virtual, but they were already there.
Okay. Leah, how about for you? What are some of your regular meetings and what are they for?
Yeah, well, I talked about the company-wide town halls. That's when the executive team is telling us from their top down what our values are moving forward. We have staff meetings and senior staff meetings that happen once a week. That's where we also get from our director our direction moving forward. We take those meetings. The teams then go forward to start implementing those. How do we make that happen? There are committees. There are cross-departmental teams as well. And that's where we make sure that the different working groups, the different departments are all kind of on the same page so that our marketing and communications efforts are aligned with our development and donor communications and that we're all on par and on message and that they all kind of work up. So there's a lot of crossover. So between the working groups and then the team meetings as well. So the trick is to make sure that we're all on the same page, all working in the same direction and on the same schedule.
Good. Yeah, that's definitely a lot, but it sounds like you've carefully thought out which ones make sense and which ones will help you keep teams aligned.
We're trying.
Yeah, I think we're all trying.
Yeah.
None of us have all the answers, which is why we're having this conversation today. Good
Yeah.
points from different spots all over the world. Devin, how about for you? What are some of your regular meetings and what are they for?
So we have sort of all of the traditional Scrum meetings. So we have our sprint plannings, we have our retrospectives and things within the individual teams. We also have a larger meeting where we are looking at our roadmap for the near term. So what's coming up in the next 6 weeks-ish that we need to be super focused on. Do we have any client deadlines that we need to be aware of, things like that. We also have a monthly company-wide retrospective. So we have scaled significantly over the last year. We've almost doubled in size. So it has been challenging and we want to make sure that we have everyone's sort of input into what we could be doing better. So instead of just having teams have their retrospectives, we also have, in addition to that, a company-wide retrospective, which has surfaced a lot of great information about how we can improve and what we can be working on in the future.
That's really interesting. That's actually the first I've heard of a company-wide retrospective. I think that's a really interesting tactic to take.
Yeah, it started when we were about 20 people, so it worked, it made sense just to have it as a company-wide meeting. And it's definitely evolved since we first started it into a bit of a different format and a bit of a different purpose. But I find that it's fairly beneficial to, especially in my role, to help surface where people are struggling and what kind of roadblocks I can help remove.
Absolutely. So it sounds like there's been an evolution of this particular meeting to see how it can continue to grow along with your company. Yeah. One of the things that I'm curious about is, it sounds like your team has been thoughtful about what types of meetings to have and how to evolve them. There are definitely the world of good, useful meetings, and there are usually a whole host of not so useful and meetings where you're like, why am I even here? How are you and your team making sure that you're having more of the good ones and fewer of the waste of time ones?
I would say that our team is super passionate about not having waste of time meetings. So I think we're pretty deliberate with our agendas, which is good. And this has not always been the case. We've definitely improved over time. I'm also very much, if I'm in a meeting and things are veering off track, I'm very much somebody that's like, okay, let's get back on track. Let's focus on this. Let's take that offline. So I hope that other people are when I'm not in those meetings. But we have gotten better having an agenda, making sure we have an expected output of a meeting is really important. So yes, we're having this meeting to talk about ABC, but what are we trying to eventually get out of it? What do we want to walk away from this meeting with?
Awesome. Yeah, that sense of purpose and making it clear to people why they're going to be there, what you're covering, I personally have found is really essential to having a good meeting. So it's great to hear that you're doing that as well. Now, Sheryl, for you, for all of us, really, like meeting culture has changed a lot. Typically, we're having different types of meetings, more meetings. It sounds like you've adapted some of your existing meetings to move online. What meetings are you having now in the remote work world that you maybe weren't having or weren't having as many of when you were in the office together? What's changed in your meeting culture and what's been helpful?
Yeah, so I'll talk specifically about my team. We would all sit together and, because I'm a project manager and sometimes you're doing resource planning or the tech might have some questions. Earlier, you could just turn around and, quickly resolve them for it. And for IPG, we all sit together. So 600, 700 people under one roof. So you can quickly go up to someone's seat and then just get done with your question. But now all of that is a meeting. So you actually have to set aside at least half an hour for it and then get to the point and ask questions. So that is something which is taking away a lot more time, focus time from work. So that's one. But again, as I was mentioning earlier, having a clear agenda and then using Asana effectively has also helped us a lot, just moving all our communication into Asana where everybody would have visibility and there's no, fragmented conversations. That sort of helps. So we are getting there. We are becoming more streamlined so that, the repercussions of moving virtual are not so bad anymore. But it's a process.
Absolutely. Well, everything that we are doing right now is a constant evolution. I think none of us have all the answers. And as time continues to keep us at home or transition some people back to the office and some people not, I'm guessing all of these things will still continue to need to evolve. Well, let's talk a little bit about keeping things evolving and keeping our teams efficient. When we polled people in the Anatomy of Work study, 83% said that their team isn't as efficient as it could be because they don't have the right systems or processes in place. What we've actually seen is that teams that do have those processes are 3 times more likely to meet their goals and really to feel invested and proud of their output. So let's chat a little bit about how each of you are setting your teams up for success. So Leah, for you, for people to stay motivated, they typically need a sense of connection to what they're working on, why they're working on it, and understand how their work fits into the broader goals that their work group and the whole team are trying to achieve. How do you help everyone on your team achieve this sort of clarity and really understand why their work matters?
So as we mentioned, what was really hard to do was for us to cancel our shows. We're the National Ballet of Canada. We produce ballet. That's a lot of the work we do is all about getting the dance on the stage. So when we had to cancel the shows, go into lockdown and start this whole world of working remotely, what was really helpful to provide a sense of goals and clarity was the redefined values. I won't even say redefined values, but restated values that were provided, that as we move forward as a company, we were given what would be important. So like the artists and staff will be top of mind, protecting us during this crisis, approaching the financial impact and recovery in ways that protect the short and long-term health, communicating with transparency internally and with stakeholders, creatively, compassionately stay connected to the community. So it was all about not just putting the dance on the stage, but staying connected, using our art form, using our creativity, using our passion to stay connected with the people. So that community is still there. So in a sense, our work changed, right? But our guiding principles haven't. And that helps provide us clarity. So we know where we're going. We know why we're doing this. We're creating connections. We're staying connected. And that's the point of what we do. It just changed.
Yeah, I would imagine like for an organization like yours, you're used to putting on shows, the shows don't happen. The strategies you've adapted sound like they've really mattered a lot for you.
Yeah.
Great. So when we talk about keeping teams on track and motivated towards their work, a lot of it is about how we set priorities for what we will actually be working on. Sheryl, for you and your team, what's your process for setting individual and team priorities?
So I would say we spend a lot of time in Q1 of the year to, come up with a roadmap of what's going to be happening for the rest of the year. As a team, we work on a lot of reporting automation and just, rolling out softwares that could benefit the entire company. So a lot of planning goes into in the beginning of the year to, what our vision is and where we would be by end of that particular year. So once that is done, we Asanify all of it. We have a project where we would have pipeline and everybody would know, okay, this is what I'm expecting. June, I'll be doing this. In July, I would be doing this. And what's the, thought behind it? So that phase, we are all aligned on what's our goal and what we are working towards it. But again, we are a very, very agile organization and things change all the time. Having that visual representation in Asana, it's easier to move things around. We use the calendar view and then, okay, I have this schedule, but my priority has changed. So what can I move around? The other feature that we use a lot is the workload feature. That's for more granular tracking. Okay, so this person has 20 hours of work in a day, but this person has 2. So what can we juggle and what can be moved around? So I would definitely say utilizing technology helps us stay on track, and a lot of planning ahead is also useful.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it sounds like you're definitely using the tools, not just Asana, but others that are at your disposal to help you be more flexible and agile with your team. Great. Devin, for you, we know that efficiency somehow just doesn't happen on its own. We have to work towards it to help our teams be more productive. What strategies and even tools have you put in place to help your teams really stay aligned and on track?
So that report that I mentioned before, the Deliverable Report is basically what we call it. It's been a great alignment tool. When we were in the office, we would have right before our new sprint would start, we would have a quick 30-minute alignment meeting just to make sure that everyone knew, hey, here are our priorities. And we had a whiteboard that we would just, jot those down on. We tried to sort of move that into the virtual world with just like a doc kind of thing, but it didn't really work as well. So this report has really, really helped us stay on track and focused. I am a big proponent for lots of reminders. I personally am always reminding people about different deadlines that are coming up just to make sure that everyone knows, hey, let's make sure we're focused on this. Let's make sure that we aren't straying and being distracted by all the other shiny things that are happening. And we have a great team that really helps their individual teams focus. So our leadership and our managers and our product owners and our development leads and everything like that are all very good at keeping their individual teams on track. So I feel like as long as we have sort of alignment across those levels, then it definitely trickles down and everyone's aware of it.
Great. So in the spirit of keeping everyone aware, I'm aware that some of you have shared your Asana screenshots with us. Let's take a quick tour. Before we do, I just want to remind everyone who's here on the webinar, if you have a question for our panelists, we'll be opening up to your questions in just about a minute or two. Just ask your question in the Q&A box if you're on Zoom. If you're on Facebook Live, post a question in a comment, and our team will transfer it over to Zoom so that we can see it and answer it live. All right, so this is you, Sheryl. Tell us what we're looking at here on your Asana screen.
That is me, and that is just one of the project templates that we use a lot. So we have templatized almost all our processes to just, keep it going and keep things on track. This is one of the reporting automation, a dashboard project that we typically do. And this is just a template. This basically captures all the steps involved in moving from an Excel sheet to a dashboard. What we do is we work with a lot of different teams, a lot of cross communication happening between teams. So everything would happen in Asana, all the communication would be there, all the tasks for, okay, can you QA this, or what's your feedback, or that kind of stuff also sits in Asana. So this is just a bunch of steps. And then once I move it into a project, I would add relevant due dates and assignees. And then we also track hours taking that we would need to finish a particular task. Because this is a repetitive process and we have been doing it for a while, we do have a fair idea of what an actual task should be taking. So we have estimated hour column, and then we also record actual hours. And if there is a massive discrepancy, we get to see, okay, this is where we are lagging behind, and this is what probably went wrong, and that kind of helps us in a retrospective for future projects. So this is one of many templates that we use at IPG.
Great. Thank you so much. And Leah, this is you. Let's talk about what we're seeing here on the screen.
So this is a calendar view of our e-communications calendar. So the email schedules that go out. I grabbed it from November last year when we were actively performing. So this is during a performance season. We color code by the purpose of the email. So there are marketing emails that go out. There are fundraising emails that go out, donor communications, event reminders, etc. There are also in studio, which is adult ballet classes that are open to the public. And so this tracks who's getting what email. It also allows us to see where there's overlaps. So if we have a donor communication scheduled on a Monday, we'll make sure that that group is not included in the other email. So you're not getting overwhelmed with communications coming out from us at any time, and that it's all relevant. And again, yeah, it makes us see to make sure that everyone's getting the same message and that our timelines are in sync.
Great. Thank you, Sheryl and Leah. Now, time for your questions. Again, if you want to ask us a question live, just add your question into the Q&A box if you are on Zoom, or add it as a comment if you are on Facebook Live. So we actually do have a couple questions that came in. I hope the three of you are ready. Let's see what we've got. So the first question is, regarding the work hours piece and the importance of unplugging, one thing that I noticed with my team early on was that everyone would say goodnight when they were signing off, which we thought was important so as to let people know that they weren't available until tomorrow. What we noticed pretty quickly as an unintended effect was that some folks were playing this game of one-upsmanship, where they would stay later and later if they saw others doing the same. Has anyone else noticed something like this? And if so, how did you solve it? Has anyone seen the one-upsmanship, I'm staying later than you game, or I'm getting up earlier than you?
We didn't see it on our team. In fact, our team is very, vocal about maintaining a work-life balance, and it's sort of the other way around. It's not appreciated if you're staying beyond your working hours. You're kind of, you're thought of as being inefficient because if you have to stay late. So I think it's about the culture that is being inculcated within a team. It can go both ways.
Absolutely.
From our setup, if you have flexible time, so if I'm going to say that my standard work hours are going to be between 3 and 9 p.m., then I will be sending emails out at that time. I think that the expectation that people unplug is you have to set your own schedule that works in your world. To say that everybody's off at the same time might not work. It might be the only time I can get that work done. For me personally, to help manage with my childcare, I take Fridays off. So frequently in the evenings after hours, I'm sending out emails and staying on top of things, but I do not expect a response. So there has to be a sort of understanding of, yes, this is when I'm working. I'm not expecting you to respond to me at that time.
Yeah. Devin, anything you'd like to add?
I think our team is sort of in the same kind of situation where we're not necessarily working 9 to 5, to say. Our team's been working really, really hard, and we've actually delivered a lot since we've been in this lockdown. So I don't know that we necessarily had a competition, but there is that added pressure of okay, so-and-so is messaging me at this time. Am I expected to be available? So I think just having that communication, and our leadership's been good about that. They have also given us a day off because they've seen how hard we've been working, so which has been really nice.
Yeah, one thing I've been doing with my team is if I see people working late, I tell them to stop. Yeah. And I understand that people might be doing things late at night periodically because of the vagaries of their schedule and how flexible we need to be. But if I see it happening regularly, I try to address it. And I also try to not set an example as a manager for like working at all hours. Or if I am working at all hours, I won't send things so that people don't see them. I just don't want them to see that there's an expectation that I'm expecting them to do that too, because I'm not. That's my own craziness.
Does
Try to
that
keep that
email
private.
delay?
What's that, Leah?
I said I use the email delay function, so don't send this email until 9 o'clock the next morning. So I know it's going, but you're not going to see it.
Another question from the audience: how are you supporting the mental health of employees during this difficult time?
I can chime in there. Our company's been great. We've actually gotten a regular yoga class going for those that like yoga, like a virtual one. And we've planned a bunch of sort of social events to keep everyone connected. And there's an understanding that that, you know, not everyone's going to be always in the best mental state that they may be when they have a routine and they have a, you know, they're going to work every day and they're seeing their family and they're seeing their friends. But I think just generally being understanding of that and recognizing, we had a company-wide meeting where they told us that that our office is not going to be reopening this year. They've decided just to keep us working from home until next year. And I was having a rough day at that time, so everyone gave me like a virtual hug over this company-wide meeting. So just making sure that you're engaging not just on work things is really nice.
Yeah, I agree. There's more to us than work. And although all of us are hyper-focused on it right now, because where we work is also where we live, there's a really good opportunity to talk about the other things that are going on in people's worlds, and we shouldn't ignore that.
Yeah.
Another question from the audience: thanks for sharing how you use Asana. I'm assuming this is for all of you. Thank you for talking about that. I'm wondering if you used Asana before COVID, how your use changed from how you used it then to how you use it now. Can you share with us how that has changed, if it has? Anyone like to take this?
Yeah, I think our Asana usage increased exponentially due to COVID, and just minor things. Earlier, we were sending emails, and you don't know if the other person has read it or, you know, if this has been received. With Asana, we would just click the like button. Okay, I got it. I'm working on it. So those things, they just, you know, keep things moving. We also moved most of our status into Asana, because earlier it was easy to just check in with the person sitting next to you. Hey, what's going on with this? Now we are very diligent about updating it in the project so that everybody has visibility and you have to go into one less meeting less, you know. And yeah, because of this remote working culture, you do see importance of a tool like that where everybody can collaborate together.
Great. Anything else either of you would like to add, Devin or Leah?
At the National Ballet, we're still pretty much in our infancy with Asana. A few departments are using it, and we're starting more and more to roll it out. We actually have the Adoption Alliance committee set up, and while we've been in lockdown, we've still been meeting as a committee to set up what best practices will be. And I've noticed that they've been starting to be used. So the people in that committee have started using it more and more. I started using it for tracking work requests. So if someone wants some research done or some data analysis done, that they now have a form to fill out, and that will make a new task. So it's been rolling out, but I'd like to say it's rolling out in the same pace it would have been anyway.
Good, thank you. Last question, and this one is for each of you to answer briefly as we wrap up. If you had to give one piece of advice to a team that's trying to be more productive, what would you tell them to do? Devin, let's start with you.
Gather information on where the roadblocks are within your team. Don't just assume that one size fits all. Definitely look at how different things are impacting different people and different teams. And then once you have that more holistic view, bring that in and work out a solution.
Great, thank you. Sheryl, how about for you? What's one piece of advice for teams that are trying to be more productive?
So I would say spend more time on planning, have a goal in mind, and then work on planning on how you will achieve it. Once you have that plan, it's easier to execute and reach where you are. Just don't jump into it. Spend some time before getting into it.
Great. And Leah, close us out with your advice for teams that want to be more productive.
Ooh, no pressure. My advice would be set deadlines and establish clear accountability, but do so in an environment of openness, understanding, and empathy. I say that the clear communication and clear expectations are the key.
Great. Sheryl, Leah, Devin, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us and with the audience here today. Really appreciate it. Just a few words as we close up for today. So, virtual round of applause for our panelists. Great job, everybody. Really appreciate, again, you taking your time to share your ideas with us. We've heard some really great ideas here today. Make sure you put them to work with your teams as you take what you've learned today and integrate it into your own productivity strategies. To make using Asana easier, we heard about some of the panelists and the ways they use Asana. We hope that you're using it too. To make it easier, we have a downloadable keyboard shortcut card for you. Print these out, put it on your team, put it on your teammates' desks, and that will actually help you get started more easily. If you are not yet using Asana Premium Business, we wanted to make sure that you have an opportunity to do so. As a thank you for being here with us today, we've created an extended free trial where you and your whole team can try out all the features of Asana Business or Asana Premium, your choice, and you'll get more information on that in the email that will be sent to you after the event. And there's been a lot of really good conversation and tips here today. I saw some questions that we unfortunately didn't have time to answer. Ask your questions in the community forum. That's a really great place to hear from other people using Asana and teams that are just trying to solve their productivity challenges as well. Share ideas with each other, and you can check out how people are discussing this in the forum. If you and your team are trying to get more out of Asana and want to learn how to use it better, we actually have 4 workshops coming up over the next couple of days where you can learn all the different ways to use Asana and how to adopt it on your team. Definitely check out these workshops. They're open to everybody. There's still space available. You can visit all of the details for these at asana.com/events and sign up. We'd love to see you there. Now, working together better is a movement, and we're all part of it. It's one of the many things right now that we are all in together. And if you are leading the Asana charge on your team, I invite you to join our Asana Ambassador program. This is a way for you to stay really well connected to us and to each other. As an ambassador, we give you lots of tips, ideas, resources, and connection, both to the Asana team and to other folks like you that are leading the Asana charge within their own work groups. You'll see here on the left, you even get an Asana badge that you can share in social media. And on the right, you'll see all of the awesome resources that we are sharing with our ambassadors. You're also invited to private webinars where you get to meet behind the scenes members of the Asana team who talk about not just what's in Asana today, but what's coming. So you get preview access to what's being released, and you get to hear from the people that are actually creating it. We share out newsletters once a month just for members, along with lots of special events like smaller meetups and workshops just for people who are part of our program. This can really help you as you're getting Asana used on your team, and just if you want to learn tips yourself, super useful for you too. And of course, everyone loves swag, and we've created a members-only Asana swag store called Narwhal Necessities, where you can shop for swag for you and for your team that is not available to the general public. So if you're interested, and I hope you are, just apply at the address that's on the screen, asa.na/ambassador, and let us know that you attended today's presentation. Our team is looking forward to your application, and I look forward to having you join the community. With that, I want to say thank you again to all of our awesome panelists, and thanks to all of you for attending here today or watching the recording. Hope to see you at a future Asana event. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.